leader today is Toastmaster Mike Owen. His evaluator is Toastmaster Herb Hayes. Can you read his objectives for us, please?
Yes.
All right. Okay, our speaker, Mike Owen, was born 75 years ago. It's a time for the United States of America entry into World War II. He has been fascinated by the tremendous teamwork by people throughout our nation as they face tremendous uncertainty. There are thousands of major events throughout the war years. Today we will learn how one group was able to do more with do little. And project number 7, researcher topic, please welcome Toastmaster
No,
Mike.
read the objectives, please.
Okay.
That's what you're supposed to read. Thank you.
To collect information about your topic from numerous sources, carefully support your point and opinions with specific facts, examples, and illustrations gathered through research. Please welcome Toastmaster Mike Owen. Do more with do little.
Listen, Toastmasters, and you shall hear how daring men quell their fear. The 18th of April, 42, only one man lives who made the raid that famous day and year. Apologies to Longfellow for stealing his first stanza of the Ride to Paul Revere and modifying it. But there was a great event on the 18th of April in 1942. America was struggling, having been bombed on December the 7th, 1941, by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor. And the Japanese continued to swarm, driving the Americans out of the Philippines, going as far down as Singapore. And America could do nothing. What could they do? The thought came that they should attack Japan. But how do you do that when you don't have a base anywhere near them? The idea was to take bombers on an aircraft carrier, which had never been done, go close to Japan, and then fly off and attack. They needed someone who could create miracles, someone who had done so much in the past. And they looked at a gentleman who was in their mid-40s, who had flown across the United States in less than 24 hours with only one stop in 1922. Hard to imagine because today we do it in just a few hours. He did air races. He was a test pilot. He had a doctorate in aeronautical engineering. And he was chosen to plan and lead this particular raid. It was decided that they would use a land-based bomber called the B-25, highly modify it, put it on that small deck of the carrier, and hopefully be able to take off and fly to Japan. It took much modification to, one, add more fuel because the range of the plane was only half the distance it needed to be flown. So they had to take out much of the armament, so they had very little protection. They also had to make changes to the carburetor for low-level flight because they did not want to fly at high altitude. But those changes were made, and in April, early April, in California, 16 planes were loaded on the U.S. Hornet, the aircraft carrier Hornet, to go on its first mission. They went towards Hawaii and picked up other support, defensive support, one additional carrier, and went on towards Japan. They were supposed to get within 400 miles and launch, but when they were 650 miles out, a Japanese picket was discovered and spotted them. What could they do? They decided they had to launch right away, but the planes did not have the range, the plan to do that. They could not come back to the carrier because you can't land those bombers on a carrier. The plan was to fly into Asia, but they had to take off 200 miles early. Those brave men did that. The first plane having only 467 feet in which to take off. Normally they used a land-based runway of several thousand feet, but they all miraculously were able to take off safely and begin the flight to Tokyo in Japan. But they were also 10 hours early, so they were flying in early morning daylight where they could be exposed, and they had to fly 50 feet, 100 feet off the water for those many miles. They had planned targets in Tokyo, Yokohama, Osaka, and several other places within Japan, the main island of Honshu. And they were all able to make their attacks on those bases, except for one, who was attacked by Japanese fighters, and he had to drop the weight of his bomb in order to try to outrun them and escape them, which he did. The planes, only one picked up a little bit of flak. They were basically unscathed getting away from Japan. But the big issue was fuel. One plane that was different than the others had very poor fuel usage, and it went northward into Russia at Vladivostok, where the Russians had said, "Don't come, we can't help you," but they had to go that way because they knew, having taken off early, they would never make it to the China base. The others went towards China, but it turned into being a stormy day and night, and they had to parachute out. Most of the planes and several others ditched into the ocean. Everybody came out safely except for 11 of them. 3 of them were killed in action. They had 2 that had drowned when they crashed in the ocean, and another one who had died parachuting out of the plane. And another 8 were captured. Ultimately, 3 of them was executed, and 1 of them died in prison in Japan. But they still lived on. Many of those brave men came out of China and went on to do other military maneuvers. Sadly, 15 of them died within the next 12 months by crashing with other flights flying over the Burma Hump and other activities in Southeast Asia. But many of them came back home. And today, only one man survives. He's 101 years old.
Wow.
And he lived longer in terms of his age than anyone. Doolittle was the next. He had been in his 40s when he passed away. When he started the activities, he was much older than the others who were in their 20s. So this one man has lived longer than any of the other people. And he was still alive for the activities that were held on April the 18th in Dayton at the Air Force Museum, where they have a big exhibit about the Doolittle raid, the Tokyo raid. I have for you material references to the path they flew, and also some of the references that I used for this report. And speaking to you, there's a great movie called 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. I hope you'll look at it. It'll knock your socks off.